Okay, welcome. Welcome. It is our 4th annual Shape Leadership and Professional Development Conference. We are thrilled that you are joining us here. If you are just joining us, thank you for meeting us here in the virtual realm. There are pros and cons, right? Many of us were really hoping to gather in person today, and we fully recognize that. The pros of today, which we will lean into, is that you get to be joining us from wherever you are, hopefully safely and healthily, with maybe a warm beverage, maybe leggings below, maybe pajamas, wherever you are, however you are joining us. We are so glad that you are here. Thank you. My name is Emily. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Training and Talent Development. I'm here with Pamela Norris and Rachel Kimmerly, who are helping organize the logistics. Our fantastic interpreter, Kylie, is going to be with us throughout the day and joined by another in the afternoon. We are so grateful that you have made the choice to be here. We are really excited to have so many folks here, so many departments in the Student Center represented today as well. And we cannot say thank you enough for really investing in your own professional and personal development, hopefully. So how we're going to start this today is our theme is shaping our reality. There have been many things in these past couple years that have shaped our reality. And we have the opportunity individually and as groups and communities for our Lory Student Center to be able to impact our own reality. Last year's theme was around our spheres of impact and how we can take hold and impact our spheres and communities around us. And this year, we really wanted to take focus on how we recognize the reality in which we're living and the ways in which we can shape them to be most beneficial, but also really push against maybe some norms that weren't working for us in the past. And you will see some of that during the conference today. We wanted to make this as accessible as possible. We have our interpretation. We also have closed captionings for us as well. You are able to change your view. If you want to view a gallery to see folks who are here, you are able to do that in the upper left corner. If you want to browse through the chat bar and the participants to see who's here, we fully encourage you to engage with each other. We chose specifically to make this a Zoom meeting and not a Zoom webinar so that we could really feel the community of 224 of us that are here right now. That's amazing. So as we shape our reality today over the next 4.5 hours, we hope you will join us however you can and however you are able. Why don't we go ahead with the new Zoom update? Maybe you got it. You are able to do a reaction. So find that reaction bar and practice giving some feedback to the folks who are presenting. So, oh, I've got an applause. You can do different emojis now, possibly. Oh, we're seeing it on the end. I didn't know how tickled I would get at this. This is fantastic. Oh, if you are just joining us, Rachel popped into the chat our attendance. Make sure you go ahead and do that. Today is going to go fast, and we want to make sure that we start this with intention. This is an event for all of the Lory Student Center community, whether you work with us, volunteer with us, are part of a variety of our departments, you are part of our community, and we must recognize our current, our past, and our future of where we're going. We do this with intention to hopefully not only say the land acknowledgement, to recognize the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute lands, traditional and current, on which we are, but to really, through our behaviors, center and ground our understandings of communities as we move forward. So we know that the land acknowledgement is only a beginning, and we want to create space to hear from the folks whose land upon which we are. So please take a moment, 2 minutes, as we watch our land acknowledgement.
Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples.
This was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other Native nations.
We recognize the indigenous peoples as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it.
As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed.
CSU is a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion.
And significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university was built upon.
This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment.
We believe that the resources that we have to enable us with the land acknowledgement are just a further representation of our principles of community. At the Lory Student Center, we have a mission that guides us, and we are under the values of the Division of Student Affairs, as well as our larger principles of community, of inclusion, integrity, respect, service, and social justice that, yes, are beautifully bound in our third floor installation, as well as being words on a wall. They are invitations within our behaviors to demonstrate the fundamental necessity of the definition of inclusion, integrity, respect, service, and social justice. We hope you will feel that within our workshops today, as well as in the keynote speeches that you have and the conversations that you are part of in this afternoon. We encourage you again to use the chat as you are able to private message folks in your community that are here. And remember the principles of community when acting in accordance with the Zoom space that we are in today. That we are part of our larger RAM community, and RAMs take care of RAMs, and we want to move forward in that direction. Our mission at the Lory Student Center is to be a student-centered organization, which is at the heart of campus. And as this, we provide programs and services that create an inclusive community and inspire active, engaged learning. We center this, as well as the student experience, while creating the SHAPE conference and where we will go today. I want to thank you and welcome our SHAPE Advisory Committee members, as well as our volunteers for the day. And specifically, a shout out to our Lory Student Center Governing Board, one of which you will be hearing from momentarily. Many people came together to make this a possibility. And while yes, it's only 4.5 hours, it takes a good amount of planning, especially when there's a pivot in the middle of it. So thank you for being flexible and generous with us as we continue on with the day. I am so excited to welcome to the spotlight Hannah Tarli, who uses she, hers pronouns and currently serves as the chair of the Lory Student Center Governing Board, has been a campus activities employee in a variety of different roles. And I am so thrilled to have her speak and share with you a little bit of a story of today. Hannah, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm looking forward to you sharing with us. I will stop sharing now and give the floor to you.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, so how's everybody doing? Sweet. Okay, so once upon a time, these are the 3 words when we think of, a story. Maybe that's what you think of when you think of stories, but stories are very dynamic and they come in all shapes and sizes and forms. They can be given orally via Zoom or through movements as well. Some in Native cultures, stories and traditions are worn on tapestries and clothing and through beading. and yarn work. My story specifically starts in Western Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then an experience that has definitely shaped me was moving here to CSU in 2018 to go to undergrad. An experience that many freshmen share with one another is where they live for their freshman year, which dorm they live in. I lived in Westfall Hall on the 8th floor in room 813. Shout out Westfall. But Westfall was a big part in shaping my big story, and I'm very thankful for that. Alongside, my dorm and the friends that I made freshman year, I also tried and had a lot of different experiences. I rushed a sorority for one day and figured out that wasn't for me. I also auditioned for a dance program, and I chose not to do that. These little experiences that we have, they shape our story, and they're part of the bigger story, which is us. In 2019, the fall of 2019, I was on Handshake, and I was just looking for on-campus jobs to fit with my school schedule, and I saw the campus information specialist position. And I'm a quite anxious and shy person at first, and even though I am, and CSU and campus information has helped me grow, that position just seemed very interesting to me, and I really enjoyed the idea that through the job description that I could reach so many people at what I thought was just sitting at the 200 level desk. Little did I know that there was more parts of campus activities in the position. But campus information and Flybox specifically has been part of my experience here at CSU and has shaped who I am and helped me grow. One of my friends from freshman year introduced me to LSC governing board through telling stories and what governing board did and how they shape CSU and the LSC, and how you can reach so many different people and be very influential in the CSU community. At first, I was very nervous to join. I had a lot on my schedule with like babysitting and campus information, and I didn't join that first time that he told me. But again, in the summer of 2020, he encouraged me, one of my other coworkers, to join governing board. And that is when I did, and I took that chance, and I took the experience that was given to me to join governing board. And through governing board in the past 1.5, 2 years, we have been able to do so much. Though the pandemic has really made everything different in how we outreach and what we do, we have still been able to get a good amount done. We have been able to share the story and the history of the LSC governing board on the LSC Instagram. We have been able to do outreach through flyers and Instagram posts. And this past year, we have been working on upgrading our bylaws and constitutions and making sure that everything is inclusive and accurately reflect CSU and its population, and specifically the LSC and those who walk through it and work here and spend time here. I remember our previous Vice Chair Braden also marketed that the LSC governing board is a great way to get a free meal once a week with our catering from LSC catering services and dining. So I am very thankful for my experience that the LSC has given to me and governing board has given to me. And some of the key players in governing board are Dr. Mike Ellis and Michael Marr, and their stories and their experience really help shape the experience that you will get on governing board. If that is something that you're interested in, you can reach out to me. You can find me in the CSU directory or at campus information. You can also reach out to the director's office or just put it in the chat if that sounds like something that you're interested in. We're really hoping to create a welcoming and inclusive environment in governing board and CSU and really follow those principles of community. So thank you.
Hannah, thank you so much. I just put a link to the governing board in the chat. So if you are interested in hanging out with Hannah and really influencing our sphere within the Lory Student Center, we encourage you to click that and fill out the interest form. It would be fantastic. You mentioned Dr. Mike Ellis. Let's go ahead and get Mike on here with us. Spotlit. Hi, Mike. How are you today? There it is.
I'm doing great, Emily. Good morning, all.
Good morning. It's so great to have you. I know Hannah referenced you as a big part of her story, and we are glad that you have been impacting the Lory Student Center for so long. As the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and the Executive Director for the Lory Student Center, thank you for being with us. And I know that you're going to share a few words with the over 125 of us that are here today in our Zoom room. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and invite you.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And, let me begin first by saying thank you to Hannah and the LSC Governing Board. I think the Governing Board is what makes the Student Center one of the most special places on campus. And, not many college unions or student centers have the kind of Governing Board we have. And I'd say that's primarily because of Hannah's leadership and the prior student leaders that we've had. So, Hannah, thank you for being here this morning and for all of the work that you do. I'll begin with indicating, again, I'm Mike Ellis. I serve as Executive Director of the Student Center. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm thrilled to be here for today's SHAPE program. Though I need to be candid and let you know I've missed the mark in my previous SHAPE conference welcomes. I think I probably even disappointed Emily, and hopeful that I won't do so today. See, the first year, I came dressed as a square, which some people said was fitting. And in fairness, Emily hadn't told me a lot about her expectations, or perhaps I just wasn't listening closely enough. To my surprise, no one else in attendance came dressed as a square or any shape for that matter. Another year, I came out thinking I'd get in shape. I wore my exercise gear, was prepared with video and music.
In this effort. Let's go, Tristan! Woo! Light up!
All right, enough of that, Emily. And to my surprise, no one else was appropriately dressed and ready to go. I missed the mark on that one too. So this year, I asked Emily for a little more direction, and here's what she offered. Wear your onesie. The conference is online. Chill, be comfortable, wear anything, Mike. Just keep it fun while acknowledging our reality and telling them a little bit about the future. Sounds like another setup, right? Really, Emily? Wear my onesie? First of all, I haven't shared with anyone that I have a onesie, nor would any of you want to see me in it. And keep it fun? We're in a pandemic, and there's nothing fun about this. Nonetheless, I'll give it my best shot, and hopefully I don't disappoint. We're just beginning our third year in the pandemic. Yes, hard to believe. And yet, look at what CSU, our faculty, various services, the Lory Student Center, and each of you have accomplished in the last 2 years. Consider what's occurred in the LSC in the last week alone. Last Monday, under the leadership of staff and campus activities, the Black African American Cultural Center, and the Office of Inclusive Excellence, we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in a march that included 1,500 people, likely more, and a ballroom event that had 500 or so in attendance to see our keynote speaker from the Little Rock Nine. She was fabulous. Our Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Blanche Hughes, shared with us her thoughts that Dr. King would be disappointed on the progress we've made toward equity and inclusion. Yes, the march is still far from over, and there's much work to be done in the area of diversity, inclusion, and social justice in the LSC. Tuesday felt like a new normal, with thousands of masked students coming into the LSC and experiencing the food court and all of our services. Our bookstore ensured students were able to get course materials, and many staff volunteered to help the entire bookstore team. On Wednesday, we were the last CSU building to close after the ice storm to ensure all students were able to get home. Our environmental services and maintenance staffs kept our building clean and comfortable, with students filling most of our lounges and meeting and study rooms. On Thursday, We had online meetings with our architects. And by the way, this is the teaser about the LSC's future that Emily asked me to speak to. We've resumed in full force our efforts toward the LSC North End Revitalization and Adult Learner and Veteran Services Expansion Project, for which we'll begin construction in May following graduation. This $28 million project is extensive and will impact bookstore operations, Ramtech, CAM's lobby shop, student legal services, and a multitude of offices and services for the entire academic year. And we'll be talking more about this in a later session. And Friday was the busiest Friday I've experienced in the food court in the past 2 years. I was so excited that I went to find staff and let them know. My point is that we're in a new, or should I say different reality, a paradox between the old and the new. Some of us in the LSC experience times as if they were pre-pandemic because this is what we know. And yet we're so much more nimble today, offering services and meetings online with more compassion for the unique and often difficult circumstances each of us have experienced throughout the pandemic. And for our new employees, this is all you know. And all of this is able to occur, not because of the building, but because of our LSC employees, each of you, from our career staff and supervisors to our part-time staff, to our more than 600 student employees that make the LSC what it is. And to all of you, I'm incredibly grateful for what you've done the past 2 years, and also just in the last week as we welcome students to begin the spring semester. Now, just a few thoughts about the significance of SHAPE, as it can mean many things to many people, as you've seen from my interpretation. And most importantly, it's what you want it to be. As I've noted, we shape the experiences of thousands of students, faculty, staff, and visitors who come to the LSC every day. And will continue to do so as the north end of the LSC is renovated next year. You clearly heard that from Hannah. No doubt, we are also shaped by those coming to the LSC. But consideration of the conceptual aspects of SHAPE is also important, not unlike this balloon. We better understand the balloon as a shape, primarily because it has volume, along with its boundaries and edges, and naming these boundaries and edges as part of the balloon shape allows us to communicate with one another about what the balloon is. And we have shared meaning, both important in being in community. And if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's important to understand our boundaries and the edges, but not let us be confined by such limits. My challenge to each of us is to keep doing what we're doing with compassion for one another, and also to challenge ourselves today. We'll want to lean into our learning edges and not let these edges define or limit our learning today. Thanks for being here. To Emily, Rachel, and Pamela for their leadership, and to all of our presenters and keynoters. I'm looking forward to the day.
Mike, thank you so much for those words, for the words of Hannah, and for what we will experience journeying into our own reality. I think the balloon metaphor is so apropos, and how we can continue to move into today. With that, our sessions are starting very short.